let's talk about the next design pattern for mobile. It's what we call FAB, floating action button. The use case is primary call to action, CTA. So what are floating action buttons? These are basically CTA, right? Just like the case we have here, but then they are floating. It means if you scroll the content that you see below, the first card that shows a little detail about the property name, the rent amount, and then some of the features, the location, and then the features you see below there, and then the second card that houses the description text. If you scroll those items, and then there are other data or other content below that description. If you screw it, it does not cover that call to action you are seeing there, that button. The button is actually flowing on top of those elements. So that's what we call FAB, floating action button. And then the reason why the designer did it this way is because he's trying to encourage. The designer is guiding the flow of the user, because this screen here, this section is showing the detail of a property. And this is a property renting application that I did for a client. And this section is just to show the property detail, where you would see the property image and other details of that property. So the main thing that we would really want to achieve here when visitors visit this property is we are trying to encourage the visitors to either call this is not exactly what I used though in the real application. I just use this for demonstration purposes. So, but the designer might want to put this floating action button to be called. Either you want the user to call the landlord, the owner of the property, or you want the user to book an appointment, to message, or any other thing. So whatever might be your primary CTA, might be your actual CTA, the call to action that you want the user to do. The next step after viewing property details, what exactly are you encouraging the user to proceed with? That is what you would put there as your primary CTA. But then this style is to make it float. So the user does not necessarily have to scroll down before he sees an option to call. Once you are viewing, you get to some extent, you are encouraged or you are convinced, you just quickly use the FAB, floating action button. Now, these are not, you don't necessarily have to see these on all applications. But then when you see this as a design pattern, you just understand that, oh, this is why this designer is using this, and the use case also. Now, why does design patterns help? Why does it even really matter? We've seen a lot of design patterns in web design. We've seen a lot of design patterns also in mobile design. So let's see why design patterns help, or why it even matters. Number one is making interfaces instantly familiar. Users recognize common patterns they have seen before, like the hamburger menu we explained. Remember hamburger, the menu on mobile that hides overflowing menu, and then shopping cart icon or tabs you see on other platforms. The reason why people repeat these types of designs or solutions in their platforms is to make the interfaces instantly familiar. If you visit a platform like Jumia, right, you're conversant and you are familiar with Jumia, with the navigation on how to place an order for an item, how to place an order, wait for your order, you receive it, add multiple order, how to check for other elements, how to search for it. You are familiar with that market space online. Now, if you visit Konga, the reason why you see things familiar is because of making those interfaces the same to some extent. It might not be exactly the same, but it's to just maintain that consistency, so you don't need to start relearning or start understanding what exactly is this and what's the use for this, why do you have this element, what will happen if I click this element. But of course, if you see some of the elements in Konga, you'll just be sure that, oh, I've seen this element before in Jumia, and I know exactly what it does. So it's the same case. That's what design pattern does. If you see a contact form in another website, of course, you fill the contact form in a previous website before, you'll be very sure, I know exactly what this does. Do you understand? So it makes interfaces instantly familiar. Though they are different interfaces, though they are different websites, though they are different applications, it makes it instantly familiar. Now, when you download Instagram on your application, for most of the cases, nobody needs to sit you down and start teaching you on how to use Instagram. because you see familiar things. You've used other social media applications, so you see familiar things. The moment TikTok came, and then you download TikTok on your phones, for those of us that have TikToks, nobody really needs to teach you about some things. You just see familiar things, except for some of the other new features that probably you've not explored on other applications, like going live, recharging your account, setting targets, and all of those crazy features that you see on TikTok. But then the major things of creating a post, posting, commenting on people's posts, liking it, sharing it, nobody needs to teach you. You see the icons are even the same. You say a love icon, you know if I click this, I will like this post. You say message icon, you know if I click this, I'll be able to comment on this post. These interfaces now become similar in some sort. So that's the reason for design pattern and why people use it. This means they don't need to learn from scratch, like I explained earlier. Less thinking, faster use, less frustration. Exactly. Less thinking, faster use, and less frustration. So the second reason why design patterns are very helpful and important is because it helps in guiding user behavior. Patterns show users what to do next, where things are, and how to interact. Example, swipe to delete in mobile apps. So a lot of mobile apps have that feature that if you want to delete a message, you swipe and then you see an option to either delete or cancel, and you do that. So these patterns helps you to know what to do next. Like I explained, if you visit a website you've never visited in your life before, if you see some text placed at the top, you get a sense of reasoning and feeling that these are the navigation menus. If you see some text at the top and then you see one that says contact us, you see one that says about us, it gives you a sense of feeling that if I click this contact us, it's taking me to a different section that I would probably see an input field and a form to contact. If you click the text that says about us, it gives you a feeling already that if I click this text, it will take me to a different section that I would probably see more about the founders of the website or the product or anything that will just give me more details. Why? Have you visited that website before? No. But the reason why you have that knowledge is because of the principles of design patterns. It's just solely because of design patterns. Once users learn it in one app, they expect it everywhere. Now, we are not just saying this and knowing that, oh, this is what design patterns does. We are saying this to ourselves as product designers so that we would also use these patterns in our own cases. You understand? Remember the last line we just read. It says, once users learn it in one app, they expect it everywhere. Do you know there are some users that would visit or would follow the onboarding process of your new application, and they will expect you to put some things in place. Why? Because they are used to those kind of things. Some users will go to the extent of expect you to put your onboarding form in different sections and in categories, and give them a hint. Are they in stage 1? Are they in stage 2? So that they will know they are about to finish the onboarding. They are not just lost. So whatever they see or whatever they are familiar with in other applications, you know, human beings, if they see it there, they are used to it, they like it, they start onboarding themselves in your own platform, they will expect you to put some things, some basic things, some common things. Let's use that term. That's why we are talking about common design patterns. So the second is because it guides users' behavior. Very simple. Now the next is speeding up interaction. Familiar patterns is equal to faster decisions. Very, very true. If a user is being onboarded on a new application and then he see input field that says name, first name, last name, phone number, quickly they know what to do. It speed up the interaction. They don't need to start thinking, oh, what exactly does this input field do? If I click here and then I see the cursor blinking, what exactly does it mean I can start typing? No. But they have seen those patterns before, so it will just speed up interactions. Example, users know a floating action button, FAB, on mobile often means add or create. So for the cases where that FAB is add or create, users will be familiar with it. So I just gave an example with input field also. And then the next is importance of design patterns. It reduces errors. Patterns reduce confusions. So users are less likely to tap the wrong button or get lost. Fewer mistakes, better experience. So one of the design patterns that is also there that we didn't talk about is confirmation modules. Confirmation modules are common design patterns. If you want to delete your account, for instance, if you want to take a very critical action, you mostly see confirmation modules. You don't just want to send money to somebody and you're supposed to write 50,000, right? You did a mistake and add an extra zero, that's 500,000. You know the difference between 50,000 and 500,000. So how that's, now imagine the application you are using does not have confirmation module. You just put 50,000, you put send, before you know you get an alert, debit alert, 500,000 is sent. People will cry. Which rubbish designer did this application? And why? They'll say, yeah, but you were the one that typed 500,000. You'll be like, and so what? Why did you guide me? Why did you warn me first? And that's why you have that confirmation module. That's very, very important. We're going to talk about that when we start our practical more. Those are very, very key. You see that as a design pattern. It reduces error. You see that's more like a practical example of how these design patterns reduce error. So if that pattern is there, almost all working good applications have those confirmation modules now. It's something that you should also pick up and use. Now, let's see mobile versus web design considerations. We're talking about design patterns, and then there are just some face-to-face considerations that we are going to check on mobile and web design concerning these patterns and aspect ratio also. So for web and mobile, the aspect, screen size, you just good you understand that web has a larger screen. Of course, everybody knows this. And then mobile has a smaller screen. Like I think I was given an illustration of you having this in mind when you're designing. Okay, we're talking about the hamburger menu. Why the use case of it? Because you can't really pour out everything on a smaller screen if you're designing for mobile platforms. So you use hamburger to hide some other overflowing menu. But if you are designing on web, you have big screen, you have space. Just some people have issues filling up those space, but you can sort it out with a minimalistic design. And then the next is navigation. Mostly for web, you have full menu outside navigation. So if you go to some web applications, just like some of the mock-up we saw, you see a full menu navigation at the top. You see contact us, you see about us, you see more, you see this and you see that, you see career, you see blog, you see a lot of navigation, full navigation at the top. And for some other platforms, the navigations are by the side, mostly application kind of platforms. They have navigations by the side where you see dashboard, you see user management, admin management, roles and permissions, settings, notifications, and so on and so forth. But in mobile platforms, mostly you see bottom navigation, just like the application we saw also, bottom navigations. These are not just put in place because the designer just chooses to put navigation at the bottom. Let's talk a little about UX now. It is for user experience and ease of use. So picture yourself holding a phone, right? If you hold a phone, where is your finger? We have region area for your finger placement and finger usage. We have the finger area. So mostly it is much easier for your hand to get to the bottom part of your phone than to get to the top, except you want to use your phone like this, except for cases where you want to use your both fingers for your phones. But if you are using one hand, it is better you put most actions in the regions where your finger can reach. That is why in most cases you see designers putting navigations at the bottom for a mobile phone. But for a web, they can put navigation anywhere. Why? You are not using your hand. Most of the cases, you are using a mouse that your hand is almost fixed in one place. Your ribs is just moving. Yeah, so you can just move. Your hand and then you locate the navigation with your mouse. You don't need to do a lot of work. That's why we have navigations at the bottom for most of the cases. For interactions on the web platform, you mostly use your mouse and keyboard, except for cases where your PC has touchscreen feature. But most of the time you use your mouse and keyboard, so you understand when you are designing a web platform, the interactions their users are going to interact with those elements using their mouse and keyboard. And then for mobile is mostly a touch gesture. It means you're using your hand to touch the surface because Almost all of our mobile phones now are touch screens, gadgets. We don't usually use keyboard phones as often as before. So then the next is the layout. On web platforms, you have a lot of space to have multiple columns in your layouting structure. You can use multiple columns, but then in mobile, most times you use a single column because of the limitation of space. So we've come to the end of the lesson for the tree. If it's necessary, if it's necessary for you, if you need to like review, rewatch the video so you really understand and follow through everything that we've discussed, so you don't really miss it, because it is very, very important that we get the beginning of our product design course. We get the earlier stages of these lessons. All of the stages are important, but these are key. These are very important. These are the foundation. If we miss it in the foundation, we would struggle more as we progress. So thank you, and see you next time.